дам думата на госпожа Елена Andonova, която е представител на Европейската комисия. Тя е от Генерална дирекция Съвместен изследователски център и ще представи дейностите, активностите, които те осъществяват в подкрепа на интелигентните градове.
Аз ставам впечатление, че конференцията ще бъде на английски. И сега съм в дилема. Предполагам, че мога да опитам да презентирам. Всъщност е логично, защото презентацията ми е на английски. Ако няма някакви възражения, може би е по-добре да... те имат възможност. Окей, чудесно. Okay, so my name is Elena Andonova, and I'm very glad to be in my home country and hometown. Thank you very much to the organizers of the cluster for inviting us. And the idea of my intervention today really is to tell you a few words about the Joint Research Center, the European Commission, and how we support activities, initiatives, and policy making related to the topic of smart city, sustainability, etc., etc. Just very quickly, what is the mission of the Joint Research Center? Our main goal is to provide evidence for policy making. I'll tell you a bit more about how we are structured, but the way we fit within the Commission is that within the Commission there are Director Generals that focus on policy making, and the Joint Research Center is basically a horizontal activity, if you like, that support with scientific evidence the policymaker process. There are several main principles within which we operate. So we are like the science hub, let's say, of the European Commission, and of course we employ several thousand scientists actually. So they produce knowledge, and this knowledge needs to be policy relevant. Also, we act as a connector in a way, trying to bridge silos between different scientific themes and topics and disciplines. Also, we are trying to look into the future. There is a unit within our directorate actually, which is called Foresight, and they will try to look into how the future will look like and investigate the impact that new technologies can bring to society and societal changes, etc., etc. So a few facts and figures. We are probably the second biggest DG, so to say, within the European Commission, with around 3,000 people employed by the Joint Research Center, out of which possibly 2,600-700 are scientists, so they're doing research on a daily basis. And we have several sites in I think it's 5 member states. The headquarters is in Brussels, where I'm sitting, which is of course close to the policy-making DGs and the Commission, the Parliament, the Council. And then we have the site in Ispra in Italy. There is one in Petten, which is in the Netherlands. There is one in Belgium. There is one in Spain, in Seville, and there is also one in Karlsruhe, in Germany. There, in terms of scientific production, so to say, there are around 1,400 publications that come out of our scientists every year. Let me remind you that all of the science that they develop, that they create, is to support policy and the implementation of policies. However, occasionally they also invent something new. So our unit actually is responsible for the management of our patent portfolio, and we have over 100 patent families at the moment, which is also very interesting. However, we don't, of course, the Commission as a government cannot monetize and capitalize on this intellectual property portfolio, but we actually make sure that we license out these patents so that this novelty can make it to the market. And the way that we do it is that we give non-exclusive licenses, so we don't create unfair competition, etc. What else? We are very much policy neutral, which means that the Joint Research Center doesn't have any policy goals or agenda on its own. So we have to be totally objective to support the other DGs in their policy making efforts. And around 30% of our activities directly support policy, and around 70% are, let's say, more to do with implementation. A very relevant example about that, for example, is the team that is dealing with smart specialization, which is based in Seville, in Spain. Since smart specialization is ex-ante conditionality for the absorption of structural funds, it's very clearly important at national and regional level. And the smart specialization tools that they provide to managing authorities are important steps, so to say, in the implementation of the national and the regional strategies that they work along with the government to specify. Smart specialization, for those who don't know, is basically which sectors of the member state are more advantageous for this member state. So where the priorities, where funding should go, since resources are limited, and they're usually stipulated on the basis of analysis where the strengths of a country. And in the case of Bulgaria, there are 4 or 5 sectors that have been identified, like mechatronics, healthcare, agri-tech, biotech, and then also ICT, cultural heritage, etc. This is just an example of some of our facilities, like hydrogen testing facility or a hot cell laboratory, etc., etc. And I must note now that we have 10 nexus, what we call nexus priorities, where a lot of the efforts in policy making go, because the Commission has identified those areas as of major relevance and importance to the whole of the EU. So the topics you can see are very much related to sustainability, to climatic, financial, social sustainability, etc., and include energy, for example, nutrition and health, finance and markets, resource scarcity, etc., etc. Topics that more or less every region in the world is facing challenges. This is just an example of how we are supporting, for example, very directly this concept of intelligent city, smart city. We have decided, the Joint Research Center, to develop the existing research sites that we have in such a way that we can include also living club component, meaning that we want to use our sites to be more connected with the citizens, with the entrepreneurs, researchers, etc. And there are plans to develop the sites by 2030. And in this case, this slide shows the mission of the redevelopment of the Iskra site. which is the biggest site that we have and which hosts around 2,000 researchers. The idea here is to be the buildings to be zero emissions, to deploy pilot technologies, for example, for smart mobility, etc., etc. And we strongly believe that by opening our sites and creating an open culture, we can attract practitioners also to come test their novel technologies and ideas, to brainstorm solutions for certain problems that regions, municipalities face, etc. And all of this information will actually help us also with the policy making cycle, because we will receive direct feedback, what works, what doesn't work, where there is a strong need for regulation, etc., etc. Now I'm gonna spend a bit of time just to talk a bit more about my activities or activities of our unit and directorate. So with a focus to innovation, we have, as I mentioned, this team in Sevilla that is dealing with smart specialization. What we like to say is that they're the guys who create the strategy. This is very much a top-down approach, if you like, because certain areas and priority areas for a country or for a region are specified. This is where the effort should go. And then I'm part of a unit which is called Intellectual Property and Technology Transfer. We are running what we call the Competence Center of Technology Transfer, and very much we come as the implementer, if you like, of those strategies that the Smart Specialization team has stipulated. And then we have another unit which is dealing mostly with monitoring. They're called Research and Innovation Observatory, so it's a full cycle for innovation support. Our unit is called Center Intellectual Property Service, as I mentioned, is the unit that is managing the patents and intellectual property that is created by those researchers working in our sites. And we also manage not only patents but other types of intellectual property, such as trademarks and even the commission, the emblem and logo, and we also support and manage the intellectual property, which is derived from big programs where Horizon, let's say, funded programs such as Galileo or Inter, and also individual projects that fall within the Horizon framework. And then in parallel to that, we run the Competence Center of Technology Transfer, which have, I would say, three main areas of activity. One is dealing with the creation and the support in the development of innovation ecosystems, which means working directly or in a framework manner with the science parks, technology parks, incubators, technology transfer offices, etc. Then we have a pillar that deals mostly with the capacities, so the human capital. Are there enough experts who understand intellectual property? Are there people who are equipped to engage or promote research business interaction, for example? So it's mostly how to bridge academia and industry, and how to help with the intellectual property commercialization process, which is basically what technology transfer means. And then we have another pillar also very important, which is the financial instruments one. And here we work with colleagues from DG Research and Innovation, and also with the European Investment Bank and the European Investment Fund, where we conceptualize instruments and actions that can support proof of concept schemes, proof of concept funds, technology transfer funds. We have been also looking into some more groundbreaking, let's say, areas such as intellectual property securitization and collateralization, and trying to see how funding for technology transfer, not just the activities, but for the actual projects, can be made available, where clearly there is currently a gap. Maybe many of you have heard about this notorious valley of death, where most projects fall and die before they have the opportunity to grow, to scale up, basically. So I'll give you a few examples of activities that we do, because as I mentioned already, we are quite operational as a unit and as a DG. So sometimes we intervene upon requests of other DGs or managing authorities to support and help the ecosystem. So last year, for example, we had a request from the Regio to help the Ministry of the Economy here in Bulgaria to come up with ideas how to reshape the technology park, which is here in Sofia, which has struggled despite the funding, and the setup of the park has struggled for many years to become operational, and there's been bottlenecks such as management change many times and many other issues, etc., etc. So what we did was to bring experts from various fields, mostly international experts who understand very well operationally how science parks should work, financially how will this be sustainable, how to market and promote the activities. So we brought these experts and we organized field visits, and then they analyzed the data, they interviewed the stakeholders, and a very good report was published at the end of the project, which is available publicly if you would like to have a look. And now, of course, we are hoping that the stakeholders are taking account of these results and will start implementing some of the recommendations. On this slide, I have to apologize because we haven't received the change of the map that reflects on the change of name of FIRA North Macedonia. But with that said, this is a project here funded and promoted by the Directorate of the Commission that is dealing with neighborhood and enlargement, DGNIR. And it's a 2-year program that we coordinate, which aims at creating capacities for technology transfer in the Western Balkans economies. And there are 5 components that we are working with, and we have experts and a consortia of companies that are delivering this program, and every member of the consortium with a different focus. So one supports, for example, contract research related activities. There is a component that aims at the setup of technology transfer offices and also giving capacities to those offices. And interestingly, there is also a component that is identifying, so to say, the pockets of research and scientific excellence in the region. And as an outcome of this exercise, we have identified 15 universities from Bosnia to Serbia, North Macedonia, etc., who we believe have a lot of potential for contract research, for creating intellectual property, for commercializing some of the intellectual property. They are basically like centers of excellence, if you like. Another component deals with the topic of science parks, and we help the creation of a roadmap for the setup of science parks in the region. And most importantly, I think the idea of this program really is to connect the various stakeholders on the ground, so they don't work in isolation because these economies are so small. Like if you look at, for example, Bosnia, which is, I don't know if they have 1 million or, you know, it's, and then you have Kosovo, which is tiny, and then the idea is to also get them to work together and exploit synergies. And it's been going pretty well, so well that another program is contemplated to follow up with this one, which will focus on, on a scheme that we conceptualize for a proof of concept facility. So the idea is to make some funds available for very early stage projects at university level and research organizations level to help them to basically make a case that there is a market for an invention, for a novelty, or where a prototype needs to be built, and this is of course consuming funds. So the idea is to provide this proof of concept facility so that some of the best projects identified can be advanced with the hope that they reach a stage where actually private investment or interest from enterprises can come to help the further commercialization, or alternatively a spin-out company is created, etc., etc. For that I wanted to mention that we also manage 2 networks. The first one is very informal because we are very active player in the whole of Southeast Europe. Probably some of you have attended some of our workshops and conferences that we organize, which are part of the what we call macro-regional strategies policy of the European Commission. We work with the Danube region, we work with the Alpine, Ionian, Adriatic region, etc., etc. And as an outcome of these activities, we actually have now a network of over 2,000 practitioners in the region. And these people actually come to know each other, and they collaborate together very often. And this is the informal network. But also we manage one more formalized network, which is unifying, so to say, the technology transfer offices of the top publicly funded research organizations in Europe. And when I say top, I mean organizations that spend a lot on research, and they also commercialize and do a lot of technology transfer and create a lot of intellectual property. They commercialize it, etc. So they're very active in the field, and they're the leaders in the field. And here we're talking about the European Space Agency and CERN and Tecnalia in Spain. So this is the type of organizations that are members of this network. And what we find very useful is that very often the challenges that those guys have are very important for policy making, because if Fraunhofer has a particular problem when they want to reach industry or want to commercialize their intellectual property or create innovation, sustain innovation, then this means that everybody else will have a problem. So they are very good network in terms of receiving direct feedback and bringing this input into the policy mechanism. As I already mentioned, this slide is just an example of how, I guess something that we also discussing today here, innovation hubs are on the rise in Europe. Some of the European cities and capitals are already extremely active, and we are talking about massive engagement of users, entrepreneurs, startup and spin-out activity, urban development. These are just examples of projects that have also very strong real estate component. And I guess I'm also also mentioning this in a way in a relation to what we have here in Sofia with Sofia Tech Park. In Milan, their Expo, for example, just closed their first round of call for proposals for projects in several sectors that they identified that can help the municipality of Milan to solve some of the crucial issues that the city is facing in terms of transport, in terms of recycling, sustainability, climate change, mitigation, etc. And they have built a living lab concept as well into their site in Milan. And this is just an example of another area where we are active, but this is more related to the eastern and southern partnership countries, where we are at the moment mapping the technology transfer ecosystems of 12 countries. And the idea really is to, you know that the Commission has a policy to ensure that there are good relationships with neighborhood countries, and we want to support the development of their ecosystems also for innovation and for to be more sustainable themselves, etc., etc. So this is a study that is very much related to mapping the ecosystems, with the idea that then we can see how further we could possibly support these countries and what synergies can be found with projects, programs and support activities that we also have in member states. I think that is pretty much it from my end, but I'm very open to any questions, and thank you very much for your attention.
Много благодаря. Изненадващо подробно представяне. Наистина е страхотно. Госпожа Андонова потвърди, че може и в почивките да питате допълнително.